don't know who to trust. Even the people who call themselves Christians and have a church, you can't trust all churches. You can't trust them all. Well, if you can't trust anybody in this world, then it almost seems like what's the point, don't it? But there is a point. It's a lesson we all have to learn. From the time we're born, every single thing that comes into our life, people, places we've been, things we do, things we listen to, things we watch, churches we go to, everything we do affects our life. And it's placed there by God to mold us into who He needs us to be. But see, here's the thing. We get to make the choice. There's a lot of people that sit there and want to say, well, God knows everything, He sees everything, hears everything, already knows what's going to happen, so you have no choice. How do you have no choice? I don't know what it is. I don't know the choices I'm going to make. If I don't know the choices I'm going to make, I don't know the choices that are set before me that says, hey, you're going to make this choice. If I don't have that information, then the choice is mine. Mine alone. Which means we have to discern the things in our life. Let me tell you what I'm kind of leading up to kind of hopefully will let you understand what I'm trying to say here. See, anybody that's been listening to my worldviews or even my biblical bopper page, rants, whatever you want to call them, knows that I love God. Knows that Jesus is my Savior. One knows that I want to spread His word, His love, and everything. Knows that I have God in my life. God was placed early on, I look at all kinds of different things that's happened in my life, and how it's changed me into who I am now. I was agoraphobe for 2.5 years, 3 years, and it messed me up pretty good. I'm not going to get into that conversation right now, but what I want to say is, whenever I decided to start getting out of my house, I was going on live on TikTok and YouTube and talking, and I built my confidence back up. Got some encouragement from a lot of people. I knew that if I was ever going to be better, I had to make a change. I had to put God more at the forefront of my life. And so I found a church to go to. It was a non-denominational church. Now, I'm not big on non-denominational churches. And I'm going to tell you real quick my thoughts on non-denominational churches, in fact. Non-denominational churches, a lot of people will tell you they're just non-denominational because they can't decide what they believe in. And that's one way to look at it, but I've been to a few of them. And even though there's some that are very questionable, there's been some that I've gone to that God's there. There's a lot of things going on, but God's there. And I started thinking about that, about the different churches I've gone to and how strict you can be in this and that, whatever. And yes, I believe we need to give God our respect. We need to respect Him in so many different ways. But I see this church opening up, and He's putting people, He's like, listen, we believe in God and want to worship God. Show up. I'm not 100% sure exactly how I feel about that, but it's not just non-denominational churches, it's every church, no matter what they call themselves. But my point on all that was, that's that's the church that I found, a non-denominational church. And I needed it in my life. I needed God in my life. And I clung to this. I clung to the small little denominational church, and I thought, you know what? No matter what's going on, I need God in my life, and I'm going to try. And I showed up every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Tuesday, every day that door was opened, I showed up. Matter of fact, one of the first times when I first got there, I said, use me. I want to serve God. I have questions, and I would ask questions. And things that I would see that bothered me, I asked about. I mean, that's what we do, especially if you want to know more, you want to understand how to live a right life. You ask questions. Hey, can somebody help me here? And that's what I did. I wasn't received very well. I was told, don't worry about it, whatever else. Now, one pastor I did talk to, I know just a small little thing, I was talking about hats in church. I grew up, we didn't wear hats in church. He said that's more of a respect thing. And just that little bit of conversation there made me go, what? I just asked you, and this is a pastor that was wearing a hat in a church when he was preaching. And I asked him about hats in church, and all he could tell me was, it's more about respect than anything else, not really that big a deal. It's about respect. It's about respect. It's about respect. So if you respect God's house, his sanctuary, don't you want to make it as holy as you can? No hats, no food, no dogs, things like that, right? I mean, that's how I think. So I did the research, though, and I'm going to tell you what I found out about hats in church. It says that if you're preaching or praying, remove that hat. Otherwise, it doesn't really say much about wearing hats in church. Not a big deal, right? But he could have told me something like that. He didn't know that. I had to research it myself. Isn't that the goal of being a pastor somewhere, is to not just preach the word, but when people have questions, they come to you and you're able to answer them, or at least send them to somebody who could answer them? More things started happening there. We're not just the hats. I mean, things were going on. And what really was the kicker for me? What really was the kicker at the church that made me realize I need to get away from this church? I was willing to come on Tuesdays and do this other thing that they were doing on Tuesdays. I was willing to even come on some Wednesdays, but I knew that was not the church that I needed to make my home base. It was the day that this last Christmas, whenever they put Santa Claus in a chair in the sanctuary. They put Santa Claus in a chair in the sanctuary and had kids and people come through and say, and made Santa Claus the idol of God's sanctuary. That's blasphemy to me. I mean, somebody please, if you're listening, if you're pastors, I'm like, please let me help me to understand this, whether I'm right or wrong on this. But to me, I feel like that's blasphemy. There's more things that went on to that church. When I went to the pastor about it, finally again, instead of responding to me in a loving way and trying to help me understand or whatever, he just asked me not to come back to his church. A pastor asked me. I wasn't being violent. I wasn't being rude. I wasn't being mean. I wasn't causing a scene. I was being very loving. I did nothing wrong, but have questions about, hey, I want to be better. Please help me be better. Help me to understand this so I don't freak out, right? And I was pushed away. Now, granted, this pastor was a new pastor. He hadn't been preaching but maybe a few years. His first church. It probably didn't help the fact that his wife ran things more than he did. That probably didn't help things at all. But and I'm not going to sit here and badmouth this old church, because that just doesn't seem right. because I could do a whole long live about all the things that was wrong with this church. And I sit here sometimes and I think to myself, should I mention what church it is? I mean, people could always figure it out, but should I mention the church? Should I mention anybody's name? Should I tell people stay away from that church? It doesn't. It's. I don't know what to do here. All I know what to do is to pray about it. My point is, we need to be more discerning about the things we let in our life. I was willing to do whatever it took to have a place in this church. In the church place that, to me, was not really, you can base yourself off and say, we're a God church, but if you're not living, and this is a sad part, and I hate that I'm about to say this. There's a lot of churches that aren't really following the things God wants us to do. They just show up just because the congregation shows up, just because, hey, I'm showing up. I must be a good person. I continue to put God in my life here. I show up every Sunday. The preacher shows up, says the word, hey, I'm doing a good thing. I'm preaching the word. I don't know what's going on in everyday life. I can't really sit here and just badmouth anybody, but I can say this, and this is a blanket thing for every church I've ever been to, every church I've never gone to, every pastor, every congregation member, every Christian. We're told that we're the church. I mean, when you start talking about how our churches need to be open more, our clubs, our bars, our strip clubs, all these other different things, TV. I mean, we can go on and on and on. They're all available 24/7 for us to help us with any kind of mood we're going through. Now, that help may not be a good help. It may be something that gets us further into sin, but it's available for us. But our churches are only open a few hours a week. Something wrong about that. And when you say something about the people, well, the church isn't, the church is the people, it's not the building. And I agree with that. Now, there is a difference between the church building and the church people. Maybe I should clarify. The church buildings need to be open more. But the church people, the congregation, yes, we need to be out there. If we're the church, let's live it like we're the church. Let's let church be everywhere we go. But we don't. We don't. I sit here now, look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars besides mine. Not a single one of them. I don't know how many of these people, if they even go to church, but I guarantee you, not a single person that's in this parking lot. I can't say guarantee, I guess, but more than likely not a single person in this parking lot that's mentioned God today to anybody else besides themselves. Has mentioned Jesus, salvation, love, kindness. No, we just live our everyday. Go do the things we need to do, keep our head down, do what we got to do, and go back home and go back to the boob tube or our phone in our hand or whatever else we're going to do that distracts us from God. And that's what it is. It distracts us from God. I don't think that wanting a church that really glorifies God and doesn't, I know no one's perfect, but there's a line. I've been to some churches, some great churches. I can't, just from my visiting them, my great churches, you know what I mean? I mean, when I went, they talked about God, they talked about salvation. We need to turn ways with that, you know. I mean, I don't know, but it's a problem whenever we have questions and we get turned away. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a minute about discerning. You know, I'm 47 years old. Before my accident that I had back in 2020, you could definitely say I was a social butterfly. Never met a stranger. A stranger was just a friend I hadn't made yet. And I was constantly going, talking to someone. I miss my old self. And that manner, as far as going out and talking to people, helping people, I miss that. And there ain't no reason why I can't go back doing it. I have to look for them opportunities like we all do.